Welcome to Fan for Racing Radio. I'm Fan for Racing Sharon, and joining me tonight is Jay Huseman, and we are here for our Hot Topic Sound Off, Darlington Chaos, Dominance, and Contenders. So we've got a lot to talk about, Jay.
Yes, we do. And first off, it was great racing, I think, overall, as we expected. Some things may have not gone our favorite driver's way, but I think there were some good things that came out of the weekend.
All right, me too. In fact, in this tonight on Hot Topic Sound Off, we're going to talk about how Darlington delivered chaos and showcased dominance and may have reshaped the contender picture across all three series. In the Truck Series, it was survival and raw aggression. In the Reilly Series, rising stars either broke through or hit the wall trying. And in the Cup Series, Darlington separated the true chase threats from the rest of the field. Who conquered the track too tough to tame? Who's carrying momentum forward? And who's already feeling the pressure? We've got the biggest moments, the boldest takes. So let's talk Darlington Chaos, Dominance, Contenders. This is Hot Topic Sound Off. Jay, we want to start with the NASCAR Trucks Series. That was chaos at Darlington. They had tire wear and a Truck Series shakeup. This one had just about everything. They delivered once again, and the Truck Series actually gave us, I think, the most dramatic finish of the season, that last lap stunner pass, a blown tire, heartbreak, and a breakout performance from a rising star. So let's sound off on the biggest NASCAR Truck Series moments at Darlington.
Well, at this point, should anything Corey Heim does surprise us? I mean, honestly, for the championship at Phoenix, we saw a 7-wide pass and make it work, and that's what we saw here again. Yeah, nobody expected him to be in that conversation. I think he started third or fourth there and just drove it in there, and it stuck, and he made it work. So it shouldn't necessarily come as a big surprise, but I think most of us thought that battle was up front amongst the others, and that's what Corey Heim does. I thought it was ironic that to start the race, Joey Logano was joking that he talked to one of the other drivers and they said Heim time's over, even though they didn't really say it. I think it was Christopher Bell they put it on, and Heim's like, yeah, whatever, don't buy into the hype. He just shows up and delivers.
Yeah, it was Heim time. Heim strikes back.
There you go.
Corey Heim, of course, steals the show. He also took the first Triple Truck Challenge bonus, a $50,000 bonus check. So that was pretty cool, too. The next couple of races, he's got a chance to increase that bonus. Now,
I will say this. I'm a little confused on this. I know they've changed it over the past couple years. It just can't be a driver that is full-time in another series, because I thought that was part of it. And I don't know if Corey Heim is listed, being that he isn't full-time anywhere, if Trucks is where he actually earns points or not. When they said he was going to get the bonus, I didn't think he was eligible, but apparently is. And it may lead to a couple more races, because I don't know that he was booked for the next 2 races in the Truck Series. But with a shot at more bonus money, that may happen now.
Well, and I'll tell you, that pass that he made, I think he was like in 5th place. And even Ross Chastain was like, where did he come from? He couldn't believe that Corey Heim won that race, because I think he thought he pretty much had it. But he certainly did come from 5th place up to the front. And it was an amazing move. Did you watch it, Jay?
I did. The truck race was one I was able to get watched, I think maybe late Friday night, early Saturday morning. If not, it was Saturday afternoon. My days kind of blend together. But overall, I think there was great racing throughout the race, highlighted by that spectacular move there at the end. And that's what we want to see, that unknown. Yes, we say, oh, it's predictable. Corey Heim won again. Yeah, but if you watch that race, it wasn't until the end that I think they even mentioned Corey Heim, honestly, as a whole of being a contender or whatnot. He was there in top 5, but really wasn't up there mixing it up until that final restart.
Yeah, I think he was on that. He was like 5 at that final restart. Well, here you got your top 5 finishers. Well, maybe a few more than that. Corey Heim, of course, came in first, came out of nowhere to win that race. It stunned Ross Chastain. He couldn't believe it. And Christian Eckes came in third, a great race for Christian Eckes. Caden Honeycutt, who pretty much dominated most of the night. I know he was disappointed, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but I thought it was a breakout performance for Caden Honeycutt. And it was Connor Mosak coming in 5th.
That's another one that kind of caught me by surprise when they did the full field rundown. Obviously focused up front on those top 3 and 4 in that pass. To see Connor Mosak get that finish was great. Christopher Bell slipped back a little bit. And I'm going 6th through 10th here, just real quick.
Yeah, I just want to say something though first before we do that, Jay.
Yep.
What stands out to me in those top 5, there's 1 Cup Series driver. 4 Truck Series drivers finished better than everybody else. So I thought that was pretty fantastic to see in that top 5 group.
It was with the finish there. And again, there was a little bit of entanglement with Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell. They were there, but you mentioned it. Honestly, that race as a whole, if you didn't watch the last restart, you would have put your money on Caden Honeycutt. And look at it there, the stat line, led 4 times for 59 laps. We've talked about this of a driver feeling one got away from him. That one I could see where Caden Honeycutt may feel like that one got away from him. But the good news is I think there's going to be more like that. In the past, we've seen him in contention. He was in control of this one. I mean, literally dominating and had it over him. But Corey Heim also led 3 times for 28. Chastain 3 times for 35. So as much as that broke my heart for Caden Honeycutt, that is what we want to see of it not be a predictable runaway finish at the end. So, I mean, you got to take the bad with the good, if you will.
Absolutely. You want to go ahead and do the 6 through 10 then?
Okay. Yeah, there were a couple of highlights there of, unfortunately, the fact that this year we want to highlight Grant Infinger in 7th.
Yes, names we do expect to see.
Yeah, not having the best of a start. Gio Ruggiero started 4th. Again, maybe fell back a little too much, ended up 8th. And then Daniel Hemrick and William Sawalich. And there again, they're not Cup drivers, but you mentioned from other series. You're right. As a whole, I think these Truck Series regulars are holding their own. Are they whooping up on them yet? Yeah, maybe not so much. But Caden really did. So,
yeah, I thought there were some breakout performances. I think the Truck Series regulars held their own and did quite well in that race. And we're going to talk about some of that. The best finishing rookie of this race. Do we know who that is? Let's see who the best finishing rookie was going further down.
Should be Brendan Queen in 20th, if I got it right.
Okay. Well, Minnie Terrell is there. Ben Rhodes, man, you had to feel bad for Ben Rhodes. Carson Hocevar was there. Yeah, Brendan Queen's in 20th. You had to feel bad for Carson Hocevar too. He got that flat tire at the end, and he fell back.
Well, and we saw this, and that's kind of been was a theme over the weekend. I think the Truck Series, it wasn't as prevalent as the O'Reilly Auto Parts and then the Cup Series especially, but the mistakes on pit road or circumstances and overcoming them. And again, Hocevar didn't get to come all the way back to the front, but was putting on a show as much as he could to get back where he was running. Unfortunately, you mentioned Ben Rhodes, great start to the season. That roller coaster took a serious hiccup and bump with finishing where he did. But we saw even Caden Honeycutt had a few issues and was in contention back at the end. So, like I said, that was kind of a theme through the whole weekend.
Yeah, that deal with Tyler Reddick or Tyler Ankrum afterwards, post-race, he did say it was not anything intentional. He took accountability for it. Of course, it doesn't help Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes was really upset. And if he wasn't going to get fined, I think he was ready to go talk business.
And that just entered my head. We might put that one at the bottom of just in general NASCAR topics. I did see something on that where drivers saying they were withholding based on fines. We'll hit that at the end of the show.
Okay. We'll come back to that one, so stay tuned. But I think they proved, Jay, honestly, I think they proved why you got to watch the Truck Series, and you got to watch it all the way to the end because anything can happen. There was, I do want to move on to our next topic here. I want to mention that it was tire wear and strategy. I want to talk about the drivers and teams that did well and those that didn't. And I really want to do a comparison between Corey Heim, Ross Chastain, and Carson Hocevar, and why the same things keep happening to some of those drivers, and the good way and in the not so good way. I think Corey Heim showed more patience and timing and really maturity, if you will, in that race versus maybe some of these other drivers.
And I think we saw that last year, even though we talked about how many wins he could have had if circumstances hadn't. Very rarely were those of the drivers doing in Corey Heim's case. It was a mechanical or involved in an accident that was around him and not him. Yeah. Whereas somebody like Carson Hocevar, a little bit more aggressive, creates it himself. And you're right. And I think we saw that already last year, and we're going to spin off into another hot topic. I said I might want to bring up why he doesn't have a full-time ride somewhere, but I think he has always shown that maturity and patience. As mentioned, he had led some laps, and there at the end was in fifth, and just riding there, and when the opportunity came up, drove it in, made it stick, rather than drive it up in and not handle it and take himself and others out.
Yeah, as far as the race weekend for the Truck Series, we know who moved down. We talked about Ben Rhodes, who took a huge dive this week. He ended up finishing last. Caden Honeycutt is the driver that I think really had a breakout race. But if we're talking about some of these other guys, Ross Chastain obviously finished second. He ran a good race, I thought. Corey Heim just did a little bit better at the end. And Corey Heim knows how to close out these races.
I think, too, that, and again, those aren't running for the points. So I'm strictly looking at the points. You mentioned it. I'm not going to harp on it. Unfortunately, Ben Rhodes. I'm not going to go to
the points yet, Jay. This is the race itself. The winners and losers in the race.
Just within the race. Okay, I got you. You're right. Corey Heim, again, started fifth, was running fifth right there till the end, that maintaining. I think you're right. Caden Honeycutt showed up with speed, started on the pole, so stayed in the green, if you will. The ones that I think kind of fell back, you mentioned Carson Hocevar. The other would be, to me, of a downside with Ben Rhodes would be Chandler Smith. And I'm just saying he's the championship leader, but started 12th. And honestly, other than looking at the points, I'm like, oh yeah, he would have been in that race because I don't remember anything about him from the entire weekend.
But he just kind of maintained his pace and kind of stayed out of everything, I think, at that race.
Then to end up 17th, again, you're going to lose points because Caden Honeycutt cut into those points. So, you got to be up a little bit further than that, I think.
Somebody who is in the green, you pointed it out, Grant Enfinger. What a great finish for Grant Enfinger after a horrible start.
Yeah, and just for the race, again, he started 11th, but that one I got to look at the whole season of just seeing him running up in the top 10 because, man, it has not been his year by any stretch of the imagination. So that is going in a good direction. And again, started 11th, finished 7th. That's up 4 positions. So going to get that green arrow, if you will. You got to have that. I mean,
you got to have that. Any others that you want to point out? What about the Ram drivers? How did they do?
Well, before I get to the Ram one, and it's still because it's a favorite, William Sawalich,
yes,
coming back and making a Truck Series start. If you're looking at numbers wise, it's got to be one of the biggest jumps because he started 27th in a Tricon Garage truck. So teammates to your race winner and Caden Honeycutt as well, 27th up to 10th. And again, that's coming back to the Truck Series. And we've documented how he's kind of struggled in the Reilly parts over his first 2 seasons. So I think races like this really give him that reassurance and confidence boost of, hey, things aren't going your way, but it's not a lack of driving talent, because we saw that shine through.
And another driver I want to highlight on the moving up side is Christian Eckes. He started 16th and ended up finishing in 3rd place. I thought that was a great run for him as well. Connor Mozak didn't move up as much. He started 10th and finished 5th. But still, those are great finishes for these guys.
And I didn't realize that Eckes had come from that far back. I knew he hadn't started up front per se, but yeah, that is a 13 position jump, which is, again, a good jump from start to finish position. So yeah, that is a lot more than what I originally had thought based on where he started.
Okay, so I think there were some breakouts there for several drivers here in the race weekend.
Now, before you move on, I will answer the question you actually asked, which was the Ram drivers. Again, they're right on the edge, 15th to 10th. AJ Allmendinger, seasoned veteran of all series, all forms of racing, 22nd to 11th, so gained 11 positions, was the top finishing Ram driver. Brendan Queen, 29th to 20th, so he made up 9 positions. However, if you're going from 29th to 20th, you're not in the best position, but he's a rookie, talented rookie, but we're talking about Darlington. So yes, I'll give him a pass on that one.
Yes, because that is the key. We talked about the tire wear and the strategy plays between the different drivers. But I thought that Corey Heim played it really well. I think those other drivers that we mentioned that were moving up, they managed their tires to finish where they did and to move up all those positions.
And that goes with experience, not just of the driver, but of the crew, because I heard several crew chiefs in the driver's ear, especially for a younger driver. And I think back to Bristol with Ty Gibbs of, hey, you need to slow down. Like, no, I want to go fast. Okay. Slow down and you will go faster and last longer.
Darlington and Martinsville, the next week is Martinsville. Those are the tracks where you got to go slow down if you want to go fast, because you're not going to go fast if you're mashing the gas. So I think that's important to note. We already covered the race results here and discussed the drivers that are moving up and moving down. But I want to take a look at the chase picture, because we've got some drivers that are moving up and down in the standings here too, Jay.
Yeah, and mention Caden Honeycutt's got to be the first one you look at of that. Why does that show a loss? I know you're going to pull up the NASCAR one. I forgot I was supposed to go to that one because that'd have the green arrows for us. But Caden Honeycutt, I think, just overall showed that dominance and where he needs to be.
Okay, your top 5 drivers: Chandler Smith, Caden Honeycutt in number 2. He's up 4 spots. 4 spots he came up. Lane Riggs moved up 2 spots. Gio Rogero had a top 10 finish. He stayed the same. Ty Majeski actually moved down 2 spots. That's your top 5 drivers right there. But looking at number 6, Christian Eckes moved up 3 spots. Ben Rhodes took a dive down 5 spots. Corey Heim in 8th.
Oh.
Andreas Perez moved down 2, and Justin Haley stayed the same in 10th.
And for whatever reason, Jayski's is flipped. So as long as I know that, they have the minus where it should be a plus. So yeah, one thing especially for Ben Rhodes, you're talking about 5 positions, and that is within those top 8. Again, we look at the top 8 when it comes to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, or I'm sorry, 10.
10. It's the top 10.
They go with 10. That's a lot to be moving within that, because again, one more bad one, and now you're outside of that chase cutoff or playoff cutoff when it comes time. So you've got to be really careful of that. The good news there is Corey Heim isn't full time. So yeah, he's up in there now. He will, even if he runs these next couple for the Triple Truck Challenge, is not full time in the series. So we'll come back out, and that'll be a benefit to Brendan Queen, who's in 11th, and he was steady, stayed the same, but you got to watch that. The other 2 there of Stuart Friesen, another one, I can't think back now to even remembering it, hearing his name as a driver of performance-wise throughout the weekend, and it shows him as -5. He is the one this week that dropped out of contention.
Yeah, he went down 5. Daniel Hemrick went up 5. So they pretty much switched spots.
And we hit it.
Moved up Connor Mozak moved up the most. He moved up 8 spots. Grant Infinger moved up 6 spots.
And that's where I was looking at exactly, Sharon. We talked about him for that race alone, but we were talking about this season. They've had a rough start. So seeing some climbs, big climbs, when they're that low, not all that surprising, and we know they should be. The problem is the higher you get, the tougher it's going to be, because you got drivers like Chandler Smith, Caden Honeycutt, and Lane Riggs at the top. You're going to have a tough time gaining on somebody that's finishing top 5.
Even some of these drivers, though, at the bottom, 27th, that's an 8. He moved up 8 spots, Dawson Sutton. He's one of the biggest movers up.
If I'm not mistaken, from the preview show going into the week, I think he was the very last full-time driver last week or the week before. So that's good to see. And we like to see that we saw some very rough starts to the season for a couple of drivers, Dawson Sutton being one of them, and Grant Infinger. To see that translate into the season points. However, like I said, it's going to get tougher and tougher as you get closer to the top.
Yep, but that's why performing as early as possible and keeping that consistency is going to be really important this year with the chase picture. So consistency is going to be the key.
And we talked about that, and I don't remember if it was in the truck specifically, but for only 12 spots, we're already 4 races in of how much time you have to make those spots up. This was really huge for Grant Infinger and Connor Mozak to get a big chunk of it in one race, because again, as the races dwindle down, you got to be on point each and every week.
Exactly. And so now's the time for you to make those big jumps, because it's not going to happen like that later on. Let's go ahead and move on here to our young guns versus the veterans. We touched on the aggression versus the experience. Corey Heim, even though he's a younger driver, I think showed a lot of maturity in that race against the Cup drivers and ended up beating the Cup drivers. So I think that was fantastic. People making mistakes versus the discipline of, like you said, racing, slowing down to go faster.
Well, and one of the things, and this kind of ties in, so I'll use it here. Caden Honeycutt, obviously upset first off that he didn't win that race, because again, he clearly had the best truck. Everybody knew it. Felt like maybe the Cup drivers who are there only to win got a little too aggressive and aren't showing respect. I don't know that I fully agree with it. Again, you got to take with that that grain of salt of he did not win that race when he felt he had the best truck. So did I see anything outrageous? No. Did I see some maybe over aggression? We're talking about Ross Chastain. That's a possibility.
Well, and Hosefar too, for that matter.
Well, that final restart is where Caden pointed the finger of those two,
yes.
Christopher Bell and Ross Chastain, being the two that caused that, but brought that final restart out, got to pushing and shoving, and that's where Heim went below everything. But that highlights what you said. Heim had the maturity. He said, y'all want to push and shove and scrape the wall. I'm going to go down here on the bottom, run by myself, and go to the front.
Exactly. There was that multi-truck incident that took out two big contenders. Ty Majeski and Lane Riggs were involved, and it did impact them. We did not see their name on that points list. Or did we?
No, unfortunately, Rhodes was unable to continue, and he's one of those that showed him when he out of the truck, and then he did his post-race, or not post-race, but interview after he came out of the medical care center. He contained his tongue at that point, but he did say he wanted to have a further physical discussion or implied physical discussion, but went into the holler, as did Tyler Ankrum.
Okay, now the guys that were the chase guys that were involved in that incident, Lane Riggs actually recovered and gained 2 spots in the points. Ty Majeski lost those 2 points, so he did not recover as well as Lane Riggs did. So that did have some chase implications there.
And obviously that was a big part of it, was how much damage was on it. But we have talked about it of, can your team at least get it runnable, if that's a word. If not, I made it up, and get it back out on the track, and at least points and experience and the team rally together, basically.
Yeah, and when Caden Honeycutt did give his interview, because you mentioned this, that in his interview, he talked about the Cup Series bullies, and that they didn't care how they won. They weren't racing for points. And so I think this chase format is going to make that more of an issue across the board, maybe, because they're not racing for wins. I mean, they're not racing for points. They're racing for wins, and they don't care who they go through to get it. I think Corey Heim showed them how to do it, but they were pretty aggressive, the Cup drivers.
And maybe it is more so in the Truck Series when we see drivers come down to the O'Reilly Auto Parts. Even, like I said, with Ross Chan, was it aggressive? Ross Chastain is always aggressive. We'll start there. I don't see it as I'm going to run over whoever, I'm here just to win. I don't care who I run over. I don't see it as that extent. Like I said, that part of it, I think, came from just the fact that Caden Honeycutt didn't win. He's mad he didn't win.
Well,
was there a little bit too much aggression? Yes, and I get that. And that's why he's saying, is because they aren't running for points or position in the chase.
And I'm not talking about anybody pulling over for anybody. I don't think anybody should just pull over just because they're a Cup Series driver,
right,
or just because they're a chase contending driver. But I do think that there needs to be maybe a little bit more respect for the fact that some of these regulars are contending for the chase in that series. And so as a Cup Series driver, just be more respectful of that aggression where that's concerned.
I think as a whole, they are. Again, I'm not going to say there hasn't ever been an incident, and this one obviously did involve 2. Like I said, I don't think Ross Chastain was like, I don't care who's in there, I'm going to run over. Just made an aggressive move that didn't work, and that's Ross Chastain. He's going to do it in the Cup Series, so what the heck?
That's true. Okay, now Jay and I are into some of the hot topics here, and it's just a reminder that we want everybody, anybody who's tuning in, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube. Make sure you share your opinion. When you post on Facebook, those will show up over here, and we'll post them up here so that we can join in that conversation. So be sure to share your opinion on some of these hot topics. Do you think the Cup drivers are too aggressive, just right, or let's see, too aggressive or not aggressive enough? I don't think they're not aggressive enough, but
yeah, I can't say I've ever seen that where a Cup driver comes down and isn't aggressive enough.
Exactly. I don't think so, but share your opinion about that. Let us know. Okay. Because we want this to be an interactive show, and we've given you our sides of the equation here, but we want to know your side of the equation here too on this particular hot topic and some of the other hot topics that we're going to bring up here as well. So just a little commercial and a reminder to everybody to chime in with your thoughts.
You know, being that you put it in those three categories, and we both agree of, I don't know that any driver is in the category of not aggressive enough when they show up. I think it does lean a little bit towards the too aggressive, but I don't think it's out of line. I mean, we're like, I think NASCAR has to step in. I know as we get closer to the chase and then into the chase, they very specifically address that in drivers' meeting of all drivers. Yes, you're still supposed to go contend for the win, but be respectful of those that are now in the chase, and it is for the championship. They're not telling them to pull over for them, but be mindful that they're in the championship hunt and you're not.
Right. And that's the only thing that I think they could show maybe a little bit more respect for, because that one wreck did impact two contenders. Now, what happened there, though, is you had one of those two drivers move up 2 spots, so they were able to recover. The other driver was not able to recover and lost 2 spots in the points. So it does make a difference. Okay, let's talk about Daniel Dye's suspension.
Oh, I knew we were going to get to one last thing there before we wrap that up. I mean, honestly, when we look at overall all series, all drivers, with very, very few exceptions, being that it was the alumni weekend, Mark Martin was there, most drivers could probably show a little bit more respect than they do at all times.
That's probably true. And I probably should have put this one up sooner.
Right.
Conversation, because that does involve Cup Series drivers being a little bit of bullies on the track when they come into the series. I agree with you. I don't think they're not win. It doesn't win no matter what. But I do think that they can be a little bit, they border on the edge of being a little overly aggressive, I think. So they just need to tone that back. Just not a lot, just a little bit, to be respectful of the guys that are running for that chase contention. But let's talk about Daniel Dye's suspension, because that one might be a little controversial too.
Yeah, well, and if you're turning it over to me first, I'm going to lead that controversy. For those that don't know, Daniel Dye was suspended both by the team as well as NASCAR for some comments and mockery made during a live stream autograph session. I'm not going to go any further with the details of that, but were the comments and whatnot inappropriate? I believe so, yes. Do I feel it deserves a suspension from your livelihood? Man, I understand where the company has, as well as the sport, as they want professional representation. However, we all make mistakes, say things we regret and probably shouldn't have. I don't know that if, as a first-time offender under this category, it warranted the indefinite suspension from the get-go. The sensitivity training is mandated. Absolutely agree with it, 110%. But I think back to a few years ago, Denny Hamlin had to go through that training but did not get suspended. that's where I'm kind of falling of having an issue of why the immediate suspension. Now, but like I said, I can understand as a company, Colleague Racing, they want Ram, they want to, you know, especially Ram coming back. They're trying to build their program back. I understand it, but I just don't fully agree with it.
Yeah, I've heard that comment as well. In a way, I understand it because I'd rather catch somebody when they're younger and everything, put them through that sensitivity training. Denny Hamlin is an older individual. He's a little bit more mature. But I do think that, and he's a lot more mature, actually, when you think about some of the younger drivers. And we've got younger drivers that are very mature, too. And I don't envy NASCAR having to make the choice between the drivers. None of us want to be in NASCAR spot to have to make those decisions. But I'm thinking perhaps their thinking is that let's catch somebody when they're younger, let them know that this is serious and that we'll put them through the sensitivity, the road to recovery. In this case, it would be sensitivity training. And so he goes through the training. He gets this, learns what he needs to learn, and then comes back. And the door is open once he completes that training to come back to NASCAR. And I fully anticipate that that's what's going to happen. Did they have to take him out of the race car to do it? Maybe not, but I understand why they did it too.
Well, just to do what you asked, Sharon, of taking the other side, and I understand where you're coming from. Correct them when they're young and teach them. But from the flip side, just like a rookie in a race, you don't know what you don't know, versus a veteran knows better already.
Yes, that's true.
Maybe you need to look at it the other way. Hey, a veteran should have known better already. So that's the counter argument to that. And you're right. I don't envy that position. I don't envy the management of the team or NASCAR as a sanctioning body.
Yeah, and that is one of the complaints that a lot of people have is the consistency when these things happen. It should be the same thing for everybody, and I understand that point of view as well. So and here's the thing of one thing I look at of if it's an on-track incident, even the fighting thing, I know we kind of alluded to that. We may get to it later in the night. I understand how you want to represent the sport, and it's changed from what it was. Everybody wants to go back to the 1979 Daytona first televised broadcast. That fight is what brought it to mainstream. But we're talking about $1 million of money being invested, and that sponsors and the company come into play. And that's where I said, like I said, I understand it. We have seen it where sponsors said, hey, we don't like how they are representing our company. We're going to withdraw. So, like I said, I understand their position. I just don't fully agree with it. But I go back to, and I had a thought and I lost it. Well, and one thing I was going to point out is there's so much difference between where we were as an organization, as NASCAR in the 1970s and 80s, and where we are today. It is much more sponsor sensitive than it was then, for sure.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And now I know my train of thought came back. So Sharon, you and I had talked about it the other day when we actually talked offline of, and I'm not going to name names. There was a driver as well as I believe a spotter that made some comments reference Mexico when we were there. Now there you're talking about representing international. And again, I can relate to this and understand it. I was in the military or the Air Force. We were very controlled, but we would get reprimanded but not lose our livelihood. Again, they didn't kick us out of the military for the first time incident. That's where I was coming from with that. But we saw a couple when it came to that race in Mexico that I think one got fined. I don't even know if the crew chief, or not the crew chief, I think it was a spotter, made on a social media platform. Granted, again, it wasn't a live stream. Again, there's different aspects to that. I don't know how they came to this conclusion and decision, but to me, that one I think would have carried a little more weight as they were trying to break in and represent as a nation, was a little bit more so, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And like I say, I think consistency is the key here that I think a lot of people would be looking for. I will say too, though, that no, I had a thought and I forgot what it was. Yeah, I just think that NASCAR just needs to. Oh, I'm a big fan. This is what it was. I'm a big fan of first time's the accident, second time's coincidence, third time.
We haven't heard that in a while, Sharon.
Yeah. So first time, maybe you do the, you might need to go through sensitivity training. We'll give you the option of doing that on your own. But if you do it a second time, now you got to go through mandatory training. And if you do it a third time, then maybe you should be indefinitely suspended for a while.
Yeah, and that's valid. Like I said, we all make mistakes. We all say things. And I even think to the lawsuits and things that came out of there. Some things were said by executives. NASCAR didn't fire anybody. That individual chose to step away. And there were some others that haven't even been addressed yet. So again, it's unfortunate all the way around. Oh, all sports all day. He was late. Yeah, I thought I was late. You way late. No, I'm just kidding. So what really I really do hate is I think Daniel Dye is one of those, a very talented driver. I think was just starting to come into maturity on the track, as it will, and part of Ram's comeback to the Truck Series. So hopefully you can recover. We talked about during a race, a championship team recovers, perseveres. I hope that Daniel Dye, as well as a team, a support team around him, can recover and get back, and we don't see him up and disappear either.
Okay, we'll let that be the last word on that. We're going to have to speed things up if we're going to get through all of this here tonight. Truck Series, just some closing thoughts. I think the Truck Series proved that they are a little bit unpredictable. Corey Heim's last lap pass was remarkable. I think it stunned everybody when it happened, but most especially it stunned Ross Chastain. So the Darlington proves the point that the Truck Series can be unpredictable. But they did bring unpredictabilities, a little bit of chaos to Darlington. So what did we learn? We learned that Corey Heim is clutch. The next generation is coming up fast. And Darlington, still one of the toughest tracks on the schedule.
And all I got to say in closing is somebody ought to give him a full-time ride.
I agree. Why does he not have a full-time ride? That is the biggest question. And All Sports Our Day, I don't think he should have been suspended. Going back to our discussion on Daniel Dye, it was honestly just embarrassing for him, to be honest. If he was never suspended, 90% of the people would have never seen it. And that's the truth. I agree with what you're saying there. But like I say, I think maybe a warning, suspension and sensitivity training, and then final one is suspension indefinitely to kind of think about what you're doing.
Hey, All Sports All Day, you may have showed up late, but you brought up a great point. I, as one that don't do streaming devices, if they'd have reprimanded him privately with the monetary fine or whatever, you're right. I wouldn't even known it. Did they bring more attention to it by suspending him than what really happened via the live stream? That's an interesting thought.
It is. It is. That made... nobody knew it happened until it was brought to our attention that way. All right. Moving along here. Next, we're going to talk about the dominance in the Reilly series. Darlington Raceway once again lived up to the name, too tough to tame, but one driver made it look easy. Did we just see an O'Reilly Series favorite emerge and take control at Darlington? Because right now, one driver is separating from the rest of the field. We're breaking down the biggest storylines from the O'Reilly Series this past weekend and why the chase picture may already be taking shape. So let's get started with breaking down the race itself. And we're going to cover the, let me get it set up here, the results from Darlington. But the winner this week was, I think, the guy who's really separating himself from everybody else, and that's Justin Allgaier. Allgaier had a statement win. This is his second win of the season. He had late race execution. He had to overcome a little bit of adversity. You had your veteran composure in this race and championship level performance. So let's talk about your thoughts there, Jay, real quick while I pull up the results.
Yeah, well, I think you hit on it, and we mentioned this is the time of year, barring circumstances, that you are going to start to see drivers such as Justin Allgaier really show what to expect for the season. And we had a couple of, again, Cup Series regulars drop down. The O'Reilly Auto Parts drivers still maintained and held their own. Again, two of them were in the top 10, but they weren't your top two. So statement win, as you mentioned, from Junior Motorsports, absolutely. Justin Allgaier, contender, absolutely. I think we had already seen that. We already knew it. I mean, for one, again, unless they have an off year, but showing that. And you mentioned it, and this is where I said at the beginning, all three series seem to have that of overcoming. And we know Junior Motorsports and driver Justin Allgaier can overcome whatever they need to. Again, Kyle Larson, the one that dominated 2 times for 107 laps. Justin Allgaier up there in contention. Team kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit, if you will, had to work back, but they did. And I look and compare it to Corey Heim. The composure to take what's there, and when time to capitalize, do so.
All Sports All Day said at Vegas, I picked Allgaier. He dominates, and Larson wins. At Darlington, I picked Larson. He dominates, and freaking Allgaier wins insanity.
I know that. That's why I'm not a gambler no more.
Okay, let's take a look and talk about the top. He says, but I picked Heim and never lost my head in the last lap in trucks.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. I'm having a hard time. I guess I got to remove one to add another one. Let's talk about Justin Allgaier. You mentioned it. He led those 69 laps. The win margin was 0.578 seconds, and he led 31 laps compared to how many did you say, Larson?
Larson had 107.
Yeah. So, but he was able to close out the race. So your top 5 contenders here, and I'll make this a little bigger so everybody can see. Justin Allgaier, number 1. Brandon Jones came in 2nd. Christopher Bell 3rd. Kyle Larson finished in 4th. Carson Cavapo in 5th. And Corey Day, the rookie, just unbelievable what he's doing at a track that's difficult for rookies. He had a 6th place finish. Then it was Sheldon Creed, Parker Retzlaff in 8, Sammy Smith in 9, and Sam Mayer in 10th place here. Jesse Love had the 11th place and Anthony Alfredo in 12th. So thoughts here, Jay?
Well, give Justin Allgaier his props, and I think we've done that, and we know it, and we kind of come to expect it, honestly, of, what he mentioned, they're on a 2-race non-winning streak, after Las Vegas with Kyle Larson in between there. The one key thing there, if I recall correctly, Kyle Larson had been undefeated when driving that number 88 for Junior Motorsports. So there's a record broke, if you will. But what I look at, you mentioned it, of younger or really inexperienced drivers showing their talent. Corey Day from 12th to 6th. Even Sheldon Creed, Parker Retzlaff, at a track like Darlington. That is impressive. And who did I miss I wanted to hit there? Carson Cavapel just above him. I know Cavapel's got a little more experience, but still relatively young and showing what they got as far as talent, because Darlington will define that. You know, and even Allgaier, you know, talked about it post race. He showed up there and thought he was a good driver, and the track showed him otherwise.
Yeah. I want to also look at, well, I hit that button too soon. Let me take this down because I wanted to show on, not this one. Hold on. This one. On here, I wanted to take a look at some of the other finishes in here. Sammy Smith, he's had a good year. Jesse Love kind of fell a little bit. I expected him to have a better run at Darlington, so I was a little surprised. Same thing with Ross Chastain. Ross ran all 3 races just like Christopher Bell did, and he had a 14th place finish in the Xfinity Series. Christopher Bell was 3rd here. Any other drivers you want to mention here as we go down? Anybody you expected to do better that didn't?
No, honestly, again, that's where we talk about the cream rising to the top. The only one would be Austin Hill, and I'm trying to remember what his issue was. Started 11th, ended up 35th. Shows him running, but he was involved in something and dropped out.
Right. Yeah, there's some names here. Jeb Burton, I thought he would be better at Darlington. He tends to do well on those types of tracks. He started 25th, though, and ended up 26th. So he was going nowhere fast, if you will. Harrison Burton started 14th, ended up 22nd. William Sawalich lost some ground. He started 7th, ended up 17th. Nick Sanchez actually started in 27th and moved up to 16th place here.
When you're talking about the young drivers, as we got to the bottom, the rookies, Patrick Starpoli started 28th, finished 29th. LeVar Scott started 29th and finished 36th. Now, he was involved in an accident, but that shows you that a track too tough to tame. You got to be absolutely on point on your game. Darrell Waltrip was there this weekend and talked about it. Race the track, not your competition, because that track will beat you.
Now, here's a couple of drivers. Dean Thompson started 33rd, finished 21st, and Josh Bilicki started 32nd, finished 20th. At least they're moving in the right direction. Jeremy Clement started 30th, moved up to 19th. Brendan Poole started 23rd, moved up to 18th. So there were some drivers that did it. Taylor Dray started where he finished. And we had some that Ryan Sieg started 22nd and finished in 13th. Anthony started 21st and finished in 12th. I'm just pointing out some of these that, you know, the ones that were moving up and down.
And for me, I mean, we talk about it of not just with Justin Allgaier of Junior Motorsports as an organization. For whatever reason, I can't think of what it is, but this year I've really been watching organizations. And mentioned Brandon Jones, especially there. Yes, a veteran driver. Darlington has not necessarily been a kind track to him, but Joe Gibbs Racing had not been Joe Gibbs Racing so far this year. We saw that already at Las Vegas, kind of turning that corner. Christopher Bell coming in. We expect him to, and he did deliver top 3 where he started. But to see Brandon Jones then get that 2nd place finish after an 8th place start. The other ones are these lesser known organizations, but I think you got to look at the results they're getting. And I go to Viking Motorsports, the number 99 of Parker Retzlaff. Started 8th, and I got that backwards. Started
Yeah.
fifth, finished eighth. Yes, it was a loss of 3 positions, but to see the organization maintaining relatively good, they're in the top 10, that is a plus or a victory for the organization that they can build on. They want to get better, flip those numbers, be moving up and getting the green arrow, but it is that consistency at least, and not big drops, if you will.
And talk about consistency. I got to point out Corey Day. He's one of the rookies this year. Started 12th and finished in 6th. He's been doing that all season long. I think he's one of the only drivers in this series that has had a top 10 every race so far. And I think, this is not typically a rookie type of track. So that says a lot about Corey Day, I think.
And the big thing there is although he had the finish at Daytona and early on at Atlanta, the story was about how aggressive he was. We didn't hear that this weekend. So I think the big story there is of not just the finishes, but the maturity as far as a driver and how he performs and gets that finish.
Yes. Sheldon Creed, another driver that moved up from 13th to 7th. So, yeah. Anybody else stand out for you? Jesse Love, I mentioned that. He started 10th, finished 11th. Didn't you think Jesse was going to have a better race than that? I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, again, he is still a relatively young driver. I don't know off the top of my head his track record. I was laughing there because All Sports All Day said my life will be complete when Ryan Sieg gets a win. Trust me, that one he lost was an absolute heartbreaker for me. I agree with that. And that's one that we've seen over several years, that organization and that team be so close. And then when they have that opportunity to get snookered by it, yeah, is heartbreaking. But speaking on Jesse Love as a defending champion, yes, again, this is one of those of maybe not their best track. So a 10th place start, 11th place finish, is that going to keep them in contention? Yes. But to defend as a champion, especially when it comes to the chase format, top 5s is going to be where you need to be.
And we'll look at it. We'll see how it impacts the points when we go over our points report. But, just pointing out some of these drivers, you can see who was consistent during the race, who gained ground, who lost ground. And I think that's important to look at when you're looking at the race results. So any other thoughts here? Any other drivers you want to point out?
No, I really do like overall. Yes, we're still seeing Junior Motorsports at the front. As you said, setting the pace, Kyle Larson in a Junior Motorsports car. And ironically, again, this wasn't supposed to be a scheduled start for Kyle Larson. He stepped in where Alex Bowman was going to be the one in this race this weekend in the O'Reilly Auto Parts. So it's still kind of disappointing. Yeah, he did run up front, but like I said, he was undefeated in that car. And we've seen Kyle Larson. He's got the talent, jump in anything, anywhere, and do good. I hate to say it, but yeah, 3rd, 4th place, that's not Kyle Larson's style.
Well, Truck Series, we had Cup Series drivers in the race, and a Truck Series driver won it. O'Reilly Series, we had Cup Series drivers in the race, and the O'Reilly Series guy won it. I like it. I think that's great.
And this might come down to, I know we talked about it on the other end, it did end up in Tyler Reddick's favor, but Kyle Larson, one of those that runs the ragged edge, runs the wall, might have come down to a little bit of tire and equipment management versus Justin Allgaier, a lot more smooth and consistent, not quite running that ragged edge like we see Kyle Larson do.
Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at our point standings and the drivers that are moving up and the drivers that are moving down as far as the point standings. And a lot of that has to do with who was able to move up and who is moving down in the race itself. So Justin Allgaier now has a huge advantage. He's 52 points ahead of Jesse Love. That's still within a race. They both maintained their position. So that was good. Carson Cavapel in third, went up 2. Sheldon Creed maintained. Austin Hill went down 2. We showed that horrible finish he had. And I think he got caught up in something that took his car out of the race. Sammy Smith, Corey Day, they both maintained. Brandon Jones had a great finish, moved up 3 spots in the points. That was a great day for him. Parker Retzlaff maintained. But now we come to a couple of drivers that did not. Raja Caruth down 2, Sam Mayer down 1, Taylor Gray maintained, and William Sawalich up 2.
Yeah, creeping closer again here in the O'Reilly Auto Parts. We're looking at the 12, but you see just through that top 12, the only one that was a bigger than 2 was Brandon Jones with a 3 position climb. He finished second in the race. Down a little bit further as we get below this, you're going to see some bigger numbers. I mentioned that in the Truck Series. From the bottom up, yeah, you can make some big jumps week in and week out in one race. It's going to get tougher and tougher. So these guys right now, like William Sawalich getting the gain 2, Jeb Burton losing 2, yeah, you don't want it to be more than that because, again, it's going to get tougher and tougher, especially as you're closer to the cut line and up into the top 12.
Yes. Nick Sanchez was a big mover. He moved up 6 spots. We talked about how well he did during that race. And then you mentioned Jeb Burton losing to William Sawalich, gaining 2. So they pretty much switched places. Dean Thompson had a good race. He moved up during the race. He gained 3 spots, as did Harrison Burton. Kyle Sieg, though, he lost 5. LeVar Scott lost 4. So that's how important these finishes are. It changes where you are in these points.
It is, and as we get into this, I know we're still overall kind of early in the season, but mention that momentum, and if you're in a deep hole of how tough it's going to be to climb out. Talk about Harrison Burton there of climbing up 3 positions. He's up to 26 now. Rough start to the season, but that's a team we expected when Harrison Burton go over there. I would have put in the 15th to 12th, maybe right on that cut line, if things went well inside of it, if not of just normal struggles right outside of it. He's looking at a hill to climb to get back up into chase contention. And that's, even if you start the chase, I'm going to go to Kevin Harvick on this. He said with this chase format, the way it is now, once it starts, if you're not in the top 6, you're probably not looking at running for the championship, because you would have such a hill to climb over everybody else if they just run solid. You know, again, you got to be Superman in order to overcome somebody that's ahead of you already and they're running solid.
Yeah, Myatt Snyder, I'll point him out because he had a 19-point move up. He moved up 19 spots to 42nd place. He's a part-time driver, though, just to point that out. But 19 spots is a big jump. One thing that I forgot to point out with the Truck Series, and let me just go back to that real quick. Chandler Smith, I want to make sure I point this out, has a 33-point advantage over second place here. Look at his stage points, 33 points. Without those stage points, that would be a dead heat. So that's how important the stage points are. And that puts, I think, Chandler Smith in a vulnerable spot. I meant to point that out earlier and I totally forgot. But I want to take this back to the Xfinity series that we're talking about now and just tell you just to show you what Justin Allgaier is doing here. He's got 94 chase point or stage points and he's up by 52. Those stage points are making a huge difference for him.
And that's where, again, any of your broadcasters now that are looking at it are talking about that consistency. Yes, the wins matter and give you those 15 bonus points And we've seen that matter in as far as jumping, but the overall consistency, and right there you pointed out, of Allgaier, without that, even with the 2 wins, might not even be in first place. It is that straight up consistency. And Junior Motorsports as a whole, of the organization, that's kind of what they're known for, is maintaining. Because you see that then of Carson Cavapel in 3rd, Sammy Smith in 6th, and who is their 4th? I'm drawing a blank now. I'm going to have to go to All Sports All Day. Who is their 4th? They have 4th full-time, don't they?
Well, I'm sorry. I was working on something. I didn't catch everything you said there.
The 4 full-time drivers for Junior Motorsports. Oh, well, because Carson Cavapel, it's not – it is, but it isn't, because Carson Cavapel's bouncing rides. I know where I was drawing my blank. Okay. So, yeah, 3 drivers amongst 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah. All Sports All Day says, why are people hating on LeVar? Horrible luck and on the most underfunded team on the track. So happy for him just to be there. I agree with you, All Sports All Day. People don't take into consideration that these guys are sometimes working harder than the guys that are in the really good equipment in order to get the finishes that they do get. And, you know, he's new in the series, so give him a chance.
One thing I want to get Sharon there, I know we were on that points page there, but we also had Hunter Blazer, 83.67 there, said he won money on Heim this weekend. Woohoo. Good bet, obviously. But appreciate you jumping in there. As far as I recall, that's the first time I've seen that comment from that login. So thank you for jumping in there.
He's commented on a couple of things. He gave his race picks, I think, this weekend as well. So yes, thank you, Hunter. We really appreciate you commenting and joining in the conversation here on Fan for Racing Hot Topics. So thank you so much for that. All Sports All Day is a regular. Maybe we'd love to have you become a regular as well.
And I'm happy for you winning money. Again, I've kind of backed away from that. Been listening to your page, found you two as of late. Well, good deal, good deal. Feel free to join us and comment in here. And I guess I strictly was talking about the live feed here on Monday nights, but Sharon said you made race picks on the fantasy report with Taz.
I'm not sure which one it was. It was either the Cup one or the fantasy one. I think it might have been the fantasy one.
Good deal. Good deal.
We appreciate that very much, Hunters. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving right along here. Again, there's early separation. There's pressure on the challengers, especially those people that lost ground this weekend. It does put a lot more pressure on them. So Junior Motorsports, though, in general, like you said, they really have a lot of positives going with the speed that they had at a track like Darlington. They're setting the pace. Now, was the Cup driver debate as big, you think, in this one? Is it raising the competition, or does it, does it hurt the full-time drivers? I didn't see that as much in the Xfinity series.
It just didn't get called out. And like I said, I wouldn't say it's any different. Kyle Larson, another one of maybe not the same level or style of aggression of Ross Chastain, but he is one that talent-wise can put you in a bad position. I've heard that before as far as Kyle Larson. He won't run you into the wall, but he'll put you in a bad position where you either got to check up. I do think it raises the level of competition. And you mentioned it. We saw it. The two O'Reilly Auto Parts drivers prevailed. Justin Allgaier and Brandon Jones got in front of your two Cup drivers. So I think that is big momentum for them.
Okay, I'm just responding to.
Yeah, I just read that of Flow Racing, the Arc East. So I think it is. I don't, even with Ross Chastain, I didn't see him go out there and just mow people down as far as, I don't care, I'm only here for the win. I think right now, I think it's good. I know when we were back in the day, and this is where I came into racing, of Cup drivers running full time. I think back to Carl Edwards, Kevin Harvick, that ran both series full time. And yeah, they're in top equipment. So I think they're in a good spot where they limit the number of starts you can have. And I'm okay with that. And all drivers we talk to, Caden Honeycutt at the moment, obviously not happy. But I think part of that was just that one got away from them. I think as a whole, I think they'd agree that it is beneficial to drive against the Cup drivers.
Yes. I want to kind of continue to move on here because I don't want to lose too much time because we still got the Cup Series to cover. Too Tough to Tame. Let's see. Only reason it wasn't talked about is because Larson didn't win. If he had won, it would be all we'd hear about. Yeah, but the thing is, Ross Chastain didn't win either. Corey Heim came up and won, but I don't know if you'd consider him a truck driver or Cup Series. I don't really consider him Cup Series yet because he's not racing full time in the Cup Series.
Well, but I think that goes back to and a lot of people call it the Kyle Busch rule. Yeah, a lot of them were upset Kyle Busch was winning when he would come down. Kyle Larson, again, showed he can be beat. Obviously, it doesn't come down as regularly. At the time, Kyle Busch was maxing out his starts, and it was a little bit higher than. I think that is one of those that they really were against that driver. There's nobody else said anything about the other Cup drivers there, but on the flip side, they weren't winning and dominating like Kyle Busch was. So I think All Sports All Day is right that it's not as big a deal if they aren't winning week in and week out.
That is true. Okay, I want to talk about the O'Reilly Series drivers, the drivers that are closing in on Justin Allgaier. We had a couple of drivers that moved up a couple of spots and a couple of drivers that either maintained. Carson Cavapo is one of the drivers that moved up 2 spots. Jesse Love maintained. Sheldon Creed maintained. Austin Hill moved down 2 spots. And Sammy Smith, these are your top 6 drivers, he maintained. But Brandon Jones kind of gained some ground on him too, and he's in 8th place.
And I know we've talked about this of what we consider the big 3, Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love, Austin Hill. Carson Cavapo kind of gets overlooked because he was one of the championship 4 last year. A lot of people feeling that this bouncing between teams is going to hinder him and hurt him. So far, we've seen him maintain and be in the mix. However, I think there's a couple there you got to start putting in, and if you put somebody in, you got to pull somebody out. Sheldon Creed being one of them. And again, I go back to the organization of Haas Factory really starting to come around. Teammate Sam Mayer, solid throughout the year, but had some more hiccups than Sheldon Creed. He's right now in 11th in points. Corey Day and Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones is one I felt should have been more in the conversation over the years. Went from JGR to Junior Motorsports to JGR, and I think he should have excelled in all of those, and just something wasn't clicking. That is this the year we're back with JGR? It is, and we saw the jump you mentioned of gaining 3 spots, climbing back into the conversation. Can't write him out. And then Rajah Cruz, and that's another one. Still a young driver, working with multiple organizations. We'll have to see how that works. And then my last one would be JGR, Joe Gibbs Racing, if they can get their ship turned and find that one little piece that William Sawalich is missing. And I don't know, it may be on the driver's side because I saw a great improvement in the final part of last year. Started out rough again this year, not quite as bad. So right there in 13th. And then Taylor Gray, another one. When he has that breakthrough season, I say look out.
Absolutely, absolutely. All Sports All Day says, granted, Larson only lost because of his crew. They killed him. My response was, yeah, but it's all part of the package. It's a team sport. So if different things happen during different races, but it is a team sport. So that's a championship team is going to be good on both ends of it.
And it was a matter of it just cost him too much because he was coming back and fighting his way back, just not enough. And again, Allgaier also had a little hiccup, not as big as Larson's. They were able to overcome theirs.
Now, let me ask you this, and this is good for everybody, the ones in the live chat room as well. There are teams that are stepping up. I have identified those teams. Can they catch Junior Motorsports, though? Because Junior Motorsports has dominated for the last year. Going into this year, they're still dominating.
Tough haul to make. I think there are a couple of teams that are close. And I'm not even going with Junior or Joe Gibbs Racing as the other powerhouse.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know which teams are going to meet the challenge. Hendrick Motorsports, but they're affiliated.
Right.
Hunter Blazier, I'm thinking I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's messed up on Cavapo. He gets taken out of a car every time someone else from Cup steps down. I will say he is performing well, even though he's going back and forth. The performance is still there. He is third in the series point standing, so it's not really hurting him that bad. Also, he says JGR is, for Reilly, is the dominant team for sure. I think you mean JRM. I think he means JRM then.
Yeah, they're the top two. This year of Joe Gibbs Racing has certainly had a little bit rougher start, but I think those are the two powerhouse organizations. I'm with Sharon. I would have to give the edge over the past couple of years to JRM. And I'm with you. Again, it's a business. I get it. Cavapo being out of the one, that had to do with sponsorship money. Again, if you got a Cup driver coming down, they say, hey, we want to sponsor this driver in this car. They did it. I like the fact that even when he's with the 91 at DGM, it's a Junior Motorsports prepared car. So we've seen that of him maintain. Okay, he is on the Junior Motorsports side. JGR is certainly there. They just had a little bit of a rough start to this season. But what I like, and after we saw Colleague Racing step out to focus on the Ram trucks, is these other organizations, and I'm going to stick behind Haas Factory, even with the switch from Ford to Chevy, which I think benefits them because they can have the alliance or more notes with Junior Motorsports as far as the manufacturer. I think is a good thing. And then we got Viking Motorsports, AM Racing, starting to show up more and more.
I will say that JGR could be a team that, if they can get it together, Brandon Jones had a good run at Darlington. I know he's good at Darlington, but maybe they are the team that could challenge Junior Motorsports.
And like I said, once Taylor Gray hits that switch, they say you get your first win, the rest of them come. We saw that with Jesse Love with Richard Childress once he got that first, the monkey off your back of getting the first win. Yeah, look out. So I wouldn't by any means count JGR out.
Okay, so Allgaier, the driver to beat, moving into Martinsville. I think he's going to be good there as well. Junior Motorsports has elite speed, and I would agree with that. I think Junior Motorsports has just been an unbelievable team. Hunter says Parker in the Viking car needs a better ride. He's driving the wheels off the Viking motor car. Yes, he is. You are absolute. Parker Retzlaff is underrated as well. I'm so happy when he has a good run because he's such a good driver. And like you said, he's in an equipment that's not the best equipment, but he's making the most of every race he races in.
And I think he's one of those drivers that's what he brings to the team, is that stability of a good driver. So yeah, would we like to see him in a junior motorsports ride or, JGR? Yeah, to see what he could do. However, knowing what he can do with these organizations, I think benefits the sport, because you got the driver is improving and lifting up the organization as well. And that creates for a better sport as a whole. As we mentioned, it's not just about JRM and JGR. Yes, they're at the top, but as you get these other organizations and drivers that pair up and start building momentum, I think is good for the sport and for the series of O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Okay. All Sports All Day says Taylor Gray has got to be the best one to beat, unless Sammy Smith shows up for round 2 in the ring. Yeah. He's right there. I'll say that. And both of those drivers, once they break through, I think they are going to be contenders for Justin Allgaier for sure. Okay.
But yeah, you can't argue against Allgaier at this point. Still early, but he is certainly, as you said, separating himself and making a statement. I'm the guy to beat.
Okay, Darlington gave us clarity and maybe a warning shot to the rest of the field. Right now, it's Allgaier and Junior Motorsports in control, and everybody else is trying to catch up. We'll see dominance emerging. We see the dominance emerging at Darlington in the O'Reilly series. If Darlington shows us anything, it's that the chase picture might already be forming, but the season is just getting started. And you say anything can change? Ask yourself these questions. Can anyone close the gap next week? Can anyone catch Allgaier? And if so, who's your chase championship pick right now? So I got Corey Day. Hunter says, Corey Day, the last guy I want to mention in O'Reilly that you have to watch out for each week, getting quicker and quicker. I agree. His learning curve has been phenomenal. For the rookie. We talked a little bit about it earlier. Corey Day I think he's the only driver that's been in the top 10 every week. Especially as a rookie, he's the only driver that's doing that. So once he breaks out and gets that win, I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I've been super impressed with him so far this season. Jay?
Yeah, I put in there, Elva, he's having that breakout right now, not necessarily with wins, but the consistency, and that's what's going to factor in. And I think that's what we saw from Kvapil last year into this year. So the two of them, I know Kvapil's under the Junior Motorsports banner, if you will, but let's see, All Sports All Day is, yeah, loving Allgaier again, obviously annual contenders, Allgaier being at the top of. Boy, it's been a while since we've seen somebody go back-to-back championship in the O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Tyler Reddick, the last one, maybe?
And just because you dominate, last year's system, just because you dominated doesn't mean you're going to win the championship. So we'll see how it plays out this year.
That's true. I forgot that we were under that system, so that kind of did play a factor in that. But, yeah, Jesse Love certainly could be. He's another one I don't know if is necessarily ready, but I view as the next one to get moved to the Cup Series. I think All Sports All Day, and I disagreed a little bit on that. I think he's, if not, real close.
Okay. Well, next we're going to explore who's emerging as strong chase contenders in the NASCAR Cup Series. Darlington didn't just challenge the Cup Series, it exposed who's ready to contend and who's in pretend mode for the chase. Let's break down the Cup Series at Darlington. Your race winner in this one, Tyler Reddick. His 4 out of 6 races, he's won. So
yeah, and this go ahead. This is one where you can't look at the stat line. You want to talk about why somebody is a championship contender. Started on the pole, 5 laps in or 8 laps in, whatever it was, had a problem with the battery. They came in, they overcame it, they battled through it, they worked their way back into position and took it. He had to drive up there and take it from Brad Keselowski, who had the dominant car throughout that midsection. Had Tyler Reddick not had his problem, would it be as dominant in favor of Brad Keselowski? Maybe, maybe not. Don't know. But Brad definitely showed what that RFK has. But Tyler Reddick came back. Yeah, absolutely. Organization. But Tyler Reddick came back and took it back. So you want to talk about somebody separating themselves so far to start this season? It has been all about Tyler Reddick. You see the four out of six first races. That puts him on the list with Dale Earnhardt from 1987 and Bill Elliott from 1992. If I have my stats right, if I don't, All Sports All Day will correct me.
I think you are absolutely correct. It's a record year, and it continues for Reddick in 2311. He had late run execution. You're right, Jay. He had to overcome all kinds of obstacles. And they asked him at the end, do you want the track position or do you want comfort? And he said, give me that track position. And he suffered in order to have that track position and to be able to go after that win. So that's the true heart of a champion right there.
It was. I was honestly surprised to not see him a little more wore out after the victory of, when he got out and went up and got the flag and came back down with his kids. And you're right. Of whatever we think about 2311, the lawsuit, all that, the rough year they had last year, they have showed up with authority this year. And I'm talking about the organization. I know Bubba Wallace had a rough day, but is still there so far. And Tyler Reddick, I mean, this is one of those we expected from him with RCR. We expected with him from 2311. He's been real close, but this is what we expected from a multi-wins per year and an annual championship contender.
Yes, and you're asking some great questions here. All Sports All Day says, let's see, this is Hunter. Hunter said he came through with a win even after the hiccups and happened to change the car battery. Unbelievable. And All Sports All Day answered you, Jay. He said, that's right. Bill and Dale, two legends. And then Hunter brings up a great question. Why aren't these NASCAR cooling suits working? It's been an issue for multiple drivers and multiple races. And I that's my big question too. I've been asking that one for a while now. What's going on with these cooling suits that they're not working? I think NASCAR needs to look into that, because to me, that's a health issue. That's something that they need to address.
And I know we had this as one of our topics a few weeks back. I think it was after I don't remember if it was the Atlanta race, but we are seeing more, in my opinion, more and more of that. And that is one that can get to a dangerous level, especially when it starts pumping the hot water around you because it's not cooling. And I think, Sharon, you had brought it up and gotten some intel of how teams are maybe doing some things. They're tampering with what the manufacturer gives them, kind of like the air pressure. There you go. What race was that where AJ Allmendinger fell out?
Yes.
But
I think that was at Sebring, wasn't it? Or not Sebring. What am I thinking? St. Petersburg.
No, well, the Cup guys were at COTA. It was at COTA.
Oh, at COTA. Okay, but St. Petersburg was another one.
We did have a couple in the Truck Series. You're right. I think Lane Riggs was one of them that had some issues with that. And there again, it's not just on the Cup side; it's on the Truck Series side as well. One of those things of Sharon, you like to talk about it with
tire pressure.
The tire pressure. They give you something. They recommend what you do with it, and the teams are cutting it back a little bit or putting something on top of that cooling unit, which is not allowing it to work the way it was designed. That the teams need to be like, hey, we need to not mess with this because it's doing more damage than good, whatever they're gaining by the weight distribution or whatever it is. And again, this is a little bit speculation, but it seems like they're messing with it in trying to find an advantage.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jay. But then look at when Tyler Reddick was given the choice, do you want comfort or do you want that track position? He said he wanted the track position. He was going to suffer. So when given that choice, the drivers want to get that win and they're going to do whatever they want. But sometimes I think NASCAR needs to protect the drivers from themselves.
Sharon, you took it. Yeah, go ahead.
It is unhealthy to be under those kind of stressful situations in the heat. And these cars get enormously hot. I mean, it's not just a little bit. It's heat that you and I would not be able to take. And these guys are in those cars and taking that kind of heat. You know, I think NASCAR, this is an example of where NASCAR needs to step in and protect the drivers from themselves. They need to fix those suits.
That was Tony Stewart's phrase, and that goes back to the lug nut deal. Yeah, you got to protect the drivers from themselves because the driver's goal is anything to win. I know we just talked about that. They'll sacrifice, put themselves through whatever. Think back, I know that was one of the comparisons made recently. Somebody had complaining about being a little warm or something, and it was kind of wrong but funny. And it had the old picture of Ricky Rudd taping his eyes open in order to see. Okay, yeah, but you can be smarter than that. Did they do it? Were they tough guys? Yeah, I get that. Okay, was it the smartest thing to do? No, it was not. Of that. NASCAR changed the rules of, okay, you don't have to start every race. If you're injured, we'll give you a waiver. Don't put yourself in a bad position. That's protecting the drivers from themselves because they were just not saying anything. Dale Jr. kind of brought that to light with the concussion issue. So I think Sharon's right. This is one where NASCAR maybe needs to say, hey, don't do anything with this cooling unit. And that goes with this next-gen car. The cabin of that car is a whole lot hotter than anything, even talking with some of the alumni this past weekend. Yeah, their cars were hot, but the windows were open. There was air movement in them. Now, Chase Elliott just said of the way the vents are on the front of the car, if you put your hand out the window, you're going to get burned because that vent is blowing that air right there, and they're sealing off that car where there's no air movement. This cooling suit has actually become a vital part of the car.
Yes. So again, I said it before, I'll say it again. I think NASCAR needs to step in and they need to really evaluate what's happening with those suits. Okay, All Sports All Day says the man can't win like normal. He has to make us all think he's done out of it. Then he comes out of nowhere and wins. Sure is exciting, but I bet he'd like it to be a bit more simple. I bet he would. Let's take a look here at Tyler Reddick's win and the top 5 finishers here. Tyler Reddick gained 70 points. He had a win margin of 5.847 and led 77 laps. So that was pretty exciting.
Like I said, it would have been interesting had he not had the problem and been up front the whole race. Would Brad Keselowski's line, you look at his 6 times for 142 laps. I kind of got to think that Tyler Reddick would have had the advantage. As we saw Brad, when they interviewed him, he said, yeah, we were good. We're in a good place, but we got our butts kicked. And you mentioned it there, even after coming back and taking the lead with like 28 to go, got out to a 5-second margin. He had the car. We know as a driver, a dirt track background, he will get up on the fence. I think he did brush it a couple of times trying to get back to the front, but overcome.
Yes, and I did. If you listen to the fantasy report on Friday, actually I didn't get it out till Saturday. Brad Keselowski was one of the drivers that I predicted was going to have a good run, and Taz threw in it's going to be all 3 RFK drivers, and he was right about that as well. But Brad Keselowski certainly at the top of that list. With the dominance he had during the race. I was surprised by Ryan Blaney, though, finishing 3rd. They actually had him as a do not pick, him and Joey Logano. Joey Logano did have a horrible race. Yeah. Ryan Blaney really was amazing and had that top 3 finish. this weekend. Carson Hocevar continuing to make strides. He had that fourth place finish. He started 16th, moved up to fourth. Austin Cindric, finally, he's had a horrible start to the season. He started 12th and finished in fifth. Any thoughts about the top five here, Jay?
Yeah, a couple of drivers there that you hit on, Ryan Blaney and Carson Hocevar. It took them all race to get their car where they wanted it, and they were coming there at the end. The Hurricane, Carson Hocevar most especially, but Blaney was gaining as well. Another few laps, I think Tyler Reddick was still your dominant car, going to win it, going away. Brad, had there been a few more laps, I think Brad might have been lucky to hold on to a top five, honestly. I don't remember how fast Cindric was. Gibbs was hanging in there in sixth. But those two of Blaney and Hocevar were coming and matching back and forth as far as even faster lap times over Tyler Reddick. It was just Reddick had that good of a jump that they weren't going to catch him, barring something outrageous. But, yeah, that was one of those of it took them all race to get the car right. I don't even want to talk about Joey Logano. Joey Logano got on the radio and said, what in the heck do we have here? I could take a Hot Wheels or something out here faster than this. You're muted, Sharon.
I'm sorry. I'm having throat problems today, so I'm trying not to cough in everybody's ear.
Yeah.
Joey Logano started in 29th and finished in 33rd. So it was a horrible day for Joey Logano. A couple others that had horrible days, Bubba Wallace, Cody Ware Reilly Herbst was doing really good until he kind of ran into some issues and he fell back. He started 14th, finished 35th. I thought he was going to have a good day. Bubba Wallace has to be the biggest loss along with Joey Logano. Kyle Larson started fourth, finished 32nd. So those are some big losers. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but losses on the day. Ty Gibbs started 28th, finished in sixth place. Daniel Suarez consistently in the top 10. William Byron started 13th, finished 8th. Chris Buescher was running top 3 for a good part of the race. He started 6th, finished 9th. He kind of fell back at the end, and I think it's because he was on the older tires. Eric Jones, good at Darlington. He started 24th, finished in 10th. Denny Hamlin started 9th and finished 11th. I don't know what happened to Denny Hamlin. He just really fell back at the end. He was running up front for a good part of the race. Chase Briscoe, kind of impressed with what he was able to do, started 23rd, finished in 12th. I'm going to do the top 16 here. Ryan Preece, 17, finished 13th. Shane Van Gisbergen continuing to show some strength for him on oval, started 33rd, finished 14th. That's a big gain for Shane Van Gisbergen. Chase Elliott running up at front for a good part of the race and fell back at the end. Started third, finished 15th. Ross Chastain started 25th and finished 16th. Any thoughts here?
Well, you kind of hit on the drivers. So, and I say, I don't know why it is this year, but I'm really focused on organizations. Start with Spire Motorsports. Carson Hocevar, Daniel Suarez, both in the top 10. Talked about Hocevar's run at the end. And then RFK, again, not quite all three in the top 10, but close. Second, 12th, and 13th. No, sorry, that was Briscoe, not Buescher. Ninth. Chris Buescher was ninth. And they were, Buescher kind of got jammed up, taken out of the race by another driver. So I think that one, again, doesn't quite reflect. That's on the good side. And then individually, you mentioned Shane Van Gisbergen, absolutely. 14th place finish after starting 33rd. My concern then, on the flip side, Hendrick Motorsports, William Byron ended up 8th after 13th, but really wasn't a top runner all day. Kyle Larson had problems, and you mentioned Chase Elliott going backwards. And that really was kind of from the start of the race. qualified third and dropped back right from the get-go to the tail end of the top 10 and then ended up 15th. I don't know what they had or didn't have because, yeah, they aside from Kyle Larson was the best. And then they pointed out as he dropped out and finished, I think, down a cylinder. I know because he got warned as far as not even maintaining minimum speed. Hocevar there was the top finishing Chevrolet.
Yeah, All Sports Hunter says Brad really knows how to manage tires and not drive to aggravate. I think he means aggravate. No,
Yep.
Aggravated agrees. I've had him for top 4. Yeah, I had him for maybe even winning the race. And for a while, I thought maybe he would win the race. But Tyler Reddick had different plans.
Well, and that's where I did. I knew Brad was good, but I felt Tyler Reddick was better when he dropped back, not thinking they were going to be able to come all the way back and overcome everything. I was like, yes, Brad's going to break that winless streak we were talking about in the preview show. But Tyler Reddick, hey, hooked up and ran.
Yep. Noah Gregson started 30th, finished 26th. A lot of these just went backwards if you look at some of these. Todd Gilliland started 31st, finished 23rd. Cole Custer started 35th, finished 28th. I'm kind of highlighting the ones that moved forward versus backward. But yeah, some big names at the bottom of the list down here. Anything that stands out to you, Jay?
Well, and I think about it we've talked about this just with the next gen car, and this was, I think, the next topic under the Cup Series, this new package. And during the pre-race, Michael Waltrip's grid walk, every driver they talked to said it was a handful, and they did a great job of breaking down the changes they made and the drivers explaining why it was a handful, as they put it, putting it back in the driver's hands. And I think you saw it there. As Hunter mentioned, Brad Keselowski, one that knows how to handle a car, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, again, he had his problems. But does that go against a driver like Chase Elliott, who we mentioned was just now starting to adapt to the next gen car of how to drive it differently, that we saw him fall back? I don't know if that plays in or not.
Well, he ran well for a good part of the race. He just fell back at the end. And I think it might more relate to what's happening on pit road versus.
And there were some issues there. We talked about that, all 3 series. Yeah.
Yep. So I think that did affect some of the drivers. But again, it is a team sport. It's not just the driver. It's the driver and how he works with his team and the team performance. We kind of pointed out when we did the preview show, was it Christopher Bell's team that had some really amazing pit stops?
Yep.
And Jesse Love's team had some amazing pit stops. So when you've got a good pit crew, it helps the driver. If you've got a good driver, it helps the driver. If your pit crew is not good, it's going to hurt the driver. And we've seen some examples of that this weekend.
Well, and talking about championship contenders and what it takes to be the champion, especially in the chase format, mentioned Tyler Reddick. Week before it was Ryan Blaney. The week before that it was Denny Hamlin. Winning after overcoming whatever their issue was and winning the race, not just coming back and finishing well, but winning. And Ryan Blaney specifically, I wish I had all the numbers, but they were comparing to Phoenix how many cars he passed on the track because he had to come from the back a couple times. Yes. And it was up there again this week. You know, you mentioned that of coming back to finish, third? I think it was 48 this week. I don't remember if the 48 was this weekend or from last weekend, but he was approaching those same numbers. Just imagine if he started up front and didn't have problems.
Yes. Can you imagine? So the new package, I think the drivers overall were very happy with that new package. Wouldn't you say?
Yes and no. Again, it's the ability to adapt to it. And I thought overall, again, did we see any major wrecks or causes of big accidents because of it? No. So They did handle it, some of them better than others, though, I think.
Yes. All Sports All Day says, I think it was 48 yesterday.
Okay, I knew 48 was one of the numbers they gave. I just couldn't remember if that was from Phoenix or if that's what they said was this weekend and it wasn't as high as Phoenix.
Yes. So who's your winner and loser category? Who's moving up? Who's moving down in the race? Ryan Blaney, I thought, not so much the race, but he had a fantastic race compared to what was expected of him coming into the race.
Well, honestly, overall, you would have to say Tyler Reddick because he did have to overcome it. But he started up there, and that's a championship, already considered a championship contending team. I would have to give the green arrow there overall to Carson Hocevar, Inspire Motorsports. Yes, I get a little bit favored there. Also on the green side, though, although it was actually, no, he started 28th in this one. Ty Gibbs over the last couple weeks. He didn't continue top 5, but he was 6th, and he just lost that at the end. The red arrow there goes to the yellow car. I think it was again this weekend, the Pennzoil machine of Joey Logano. And I'm with him. I'm like, I don't know how you could even bring that kind of junk to a cup level race.
Yeah. There's an example of, the whole team working together, and somehow they missed that package for him, and it hurt his race altogether. Anybody else? Eric Jones moved up in that race, so that was a big thing for Legacy Motorsports.
Agreed.
Run. But the biggest loser had to be Joey Logano.
The one thing I look at there and we talked about this in the preview show of, could you consider Eric Jones a contender? We know he's won there twice. That you got to have the total package, and that means coming off the truck fast to start with. Started 24th, but got his way back up to 10th. Where would he be if he got to start a little bit closer, had a little bit more speed from the get-go? And that's where it takes that whole package, the whole weekend, the whole year.
Yep. Okay, let's take a look at the points now when we're talking about the series here, and who's moving up and down in those points.
Believe it or not, Tyler Reddick is moving up, if you will, because he's expanding his points lead.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing there. I keep forgetting I got to take it down before I can put one up.
Oh, that's right. You said you can't just swap over.
Yeah. Whoops. There it is. The points report here. Tyler Reddick at the top. He's got 52 stage points. He almost looks the exact opposite of Justin Allgaier. He's got the 52 stage points, but he's 95 points ahead of Ryan Blaney, who is in second. That's more than a race worth.
And that goes back to the bonus points of winning with the 4 victories. So, yeah, he's collecting them a little bit differently than Allgaier.
Yeah. Okay, so Ryan Blaney is up 1, Bubba Wallace down 1. We saw Bubba Wallace have a horrible race. I'm surprised it didn't hurt him more. Denny Hamlin maintained, Chase Elliott maintained. William Byron, 6th place, he's up 2, as is Chris Buescher. Both had good runs. Christopher Bell fell back 2. Brad Keselowski up 3, Kyle Larson down 3. So one goes up, the other goes down. Ty Gibbs actually lost ground, which surprises me a little bit. He's down 1. Ryan Preece up 1. Carson Hocevar up 2. Daniel Suarez up 3. Shane Van Gisbergen up 1. Joey Logano down 5. That hurt him big time. He's now on that cut line in 16th place. Michael McDowell below the cut line. He's down 3 spots. Several drivers maintained here with Allmendinger, Zane Smith, and Ross Chastain. Austin Cindric, talk about a bad start to the season and what a good finish did for him. He's up 9 spots. He's 21st now, which puts him more in range of hitting that 16th place qualifying spot. Chase Briscoe up 4, Kyle Busch down 1, Eric Jones up 3, John Hunter Nemechek, his teammate, though, down 4. So Riley Earps down 4. He was having such a good run, got into that accident, and it turned his day around. Todd Gilliland up 1, Connor Zilich up 2. So you've got it here. Cody Ware down 2, Ricky Stenhouse down 2. Your thoughts here, Jay?
Well, there again, initially I'm looking, whoops, get back on my other page. Hunter said he had to go to bed, wanted to check in again. We're live every Monday night at 8:15 Central Time. Happy to have you on here with us and interacting. So hopefully we see you on a weekly basis.
Yeah, we do live shows on Mondays at 8:15. Now, the other group, we've got another group, Race Chat Live. They do a live stream on Wednesdays at 6. I don't know if you want to join that one or not, but that's 6 o'clock Central Time. So, but that is the other live stream. I think all the rest of our shows are pretty much recorded.
All right. So looking at that Bubba Wallace, and you mentioned thinking it'd take a bigger hit. If you look, Denny Hamlin is only 2 points behind him. He had a very strong start, and it did about wipe him down to 4th. Denny Hamlin just 2 points behind him. Chase Elliott had a little bit better day. Another one that could have closed in on him. But again, only a few positions up or down here. With the exception of, you talked about Kyle Larson dropped 3, Brad up 3, and then Joey Logano. I mean, that just shows you how rough that was for Joey Logano. Put him onto the cut line. And then you mentioned Ty Gibbs versus Ryan Preece. And since you have that one up, you can go into their stat lines. There, I think Ryan Preece, the stage points, Ty Gibbs having started 24th, Ryan Preece was able to get stage points, and they talked about that, of that building that consistency throughout the race, being right there the entire race versus having to overcome and work from the back, a focus of RFK as a whole organization.
Oops, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. What I thought I was going to do is highlight Ty Gibbs, but it was Ty Dillon. Where's Ty Gibbs here? Okay, they're right next to each other. Yeah, one down, one up. Okay.
One I want to focus on there, as we're talking about, just it's been consistent. You hit him a couple of times. Shane Van Gisbergen last year talked about, I want to say, go against the haters here. Oh, he only gets into the top 16 based on the road course wins. Last year he did. This year he is 15th in points, not based on wins. That is how much improvement he has had on the oval track. Give him a break.
He's in chase contention. Kudos. All Sports All Day says, great job for Ty Gibbs this year. NASCAR at Part 2 has lit a fire under his you-know-what.
Right.
It has. He's been doing better.
NASCAR, yeah. He's one that, again, seemed to struggle a little bit. Saw where we thought he was knocking on the door for top 5s and possibly that win. And then whatever happened within the organization, some frustrations. I think we're seeing him back. And again, he's another one. I think once he gets that first win and all the pieces start clicking, look out.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to get into the controversial part of our conversation here tonight with some additional hot topics. 3 cars failed pre-race inspections. And this is a sore subject for me because I don't think NASCAR is penalizing heavy enough for this to stop. Chase Elliott, the number 9 car, Chris Buescher, the number 17 car, and Timmy Hill, the number 66 car, all failed. They've all lost a car chief or somebody from their crew and lost their pit stall selection. It's not enough of a penalty in my mind to get these guys to come to the track with a car that is legal to run. And I have an issue. I think NASCAR needs to get tougher.
Well, Sharon, and last week I was talking about you being the one that wants to drop the hammer. I'm with you. I do think they need to do something different because it apparently is not working. You see them especially multiple times. And this to me goes back into the whole charter system, which I kind of have an issue with. When you come to a dirt track, if you don't pass pre-race tech, you don't get on the track. You don't run. I mean, we've talked about it for the wins back when they had the encumbered wins. Oh, you can win even with an illegal car. No, you can't race with an illegal car. Don't let them run. I'll bet if they have to take a week off and lose those points, they should get through tech the first time next week. I guarantee it. You know, I mean, that's what it comes down to. And I say that goes back to the guaranteed charter. Well, we're guaranteed to start. We can not pass tech or have multiple penalties. I get that's a harsh. I'm okay with that if they were to go to that. What I do think is reasonable is start a season-long tally of that. Hey, you had 2 last week. We let it go. You just lost your pit selection, your crew chief or car member, which is no penalty because everybody stays in contact through technology. Yeah. But if you get 5 or 6 for the year, start making the penalty hurt. You go laps down, you miss a race, you lose championship points, something that hurts.
Yeah, we should not be seeing pre-race inspections this frequently, in my mind. And I think that NASCAR just needs to get tougher. My big thing is, if you've been cheating all year, if you've been coming to the racetrack with a car that doesn't pass inspection that many times, I don't want to crown you as a champion at the end of the year. And I think points need to be taken away so that you cannot win a championship if you are bringing an illegal car to the track every week.
And I can get behind that. I agree that because that's going to start hurting. They're going to start realizing in a hurry that.
Okay. Let's talk about the Suarez-Chastain feud running deep.
Well, I didn't hear Suarez's interview, but his was apparently the same as Chastain's. I did hear Chastain's, and he said, hey, he's not my teammate anymore. I don't have to like him and get along with him. He said they'll tolerate, again, they're still professionals, but there apparently is not a whole lot of love lost there between them. It just wasn't public when they were teammates.
Yeah, it's really kind of a sad situation. I like both drivers. So I don't want to take a side on either one of them, but it does seem like Daniel Suarez is getting the raw end of the deal. I think that incident last week was not that big of a deal. And why in the world he made such a big deal about it, I don't understand it. The one thing that I think is happening, and I've heard a lot of people say this, and I'll kind of repeat it here, and that is that I think Ross Chastain is a little upset that Daniel Suarez is getting top 10 finishes every week, and he's not been doing that. So I think the fact that he left the organization and is doing better than what Ross Chastain is doing, I think is a little bit of an owie for him. And he's getting upset about it, but he's taking it out on Daniel Suarez instead of looking internally, what can I do better to challenge myself to be up in that top 10.
Well, and again, this goes back to who you saw as the aggressor from the incident the previous week. From what we've heard in the past, Daniel Suarez say, hey, I felt like I wasn't even getting the same good equipment at Trackhouse. That from his side, be like, hey, I'm showing you now. What incidences, and I know he had the run-in with SVG early in the year and then Chastain last week, but I think for him that is carrying over. And Ross Chastain admitted of he's got the upper hand right now because they're getting top 10s and we're not, and that's within our organization. So I'm happy for Daniel Suarez. I'm happy for Spire Motorsports is a growing organization. You're talking about Carson Hocevar with them and Michael McDowell, the first one to have come over there as a veteran driver that we've seen. I think they're going to be a contending organization here in the relatively near future.
So he says he's happy for him, and yet he confronts him over nothing at the racetrack. I think there's a disconnect there.
Well, and like I said, there obviously was. He did admit that he wasn't his favorite person, but he worked with him as a teammate. Now he doesn't have to, and that's all the details. Like I said, I didn't hear Daniel Suarez's side to that, but well, apparently Daniel Suarez is on the confused side. He doesn't He said that they're two different types of people, and that it's a hot and cold situation. There's times that they've worked together well, and then there's other times when it's been like it was last week, where they're upset with one another. So he just wishes that there was some consistency there. Well, and that may go back to when they, even as teammates, if Ross Chastain was saying, hey, we've seen that it can be the personality clash, different driving styles, different mentalities, whatever it be. And honestly, as a whole, from what we see from the public eye and what's portrayed, Daniel Suarez is a much chiller. I know he can get fired up for sure. We've seen that, but overall, a much more mellow guy, Ross Chastain, and I like that in a person. I'm not harping on him for it, but he is a vocal and aggressive person as well as driver.
Right. Now, somebody asked Denny Hamlin about racing teammates and when they've left the organization, how was the relationship? And he said that he thinks that sometimes it's kind of human nature to be that way when you're not a teammate anymore. But in the long run, he said sometimes that works itself out, and I ended up being better friends with them than I was when they were my teammate. So it just depends on the situation, I think.
Well, and we've seen that. We've talked about that with other multi-car teams of, that if things are equal, you have the same equipment as the guy next to you. Just take Denny Hamlin and Joe Gibbs Racing with Kyle Busch at the time. If your teammate is winning and you're not, you'd rather see an outside organization win and you be the best of your organization at the very minimum.
Okay. And moving along here, closing thoughts, Tyler Reddick, he's obviously the driver to beat this season, winning 4 out of the 6 races so far. But who are his closest competitors? And I would have to say, based on the points report, it looks like I'm looking at, did we go over the points?
Not real. Yeah, kind of just who moved up and down, but
okay. But Ryan Blaney is up there. He's he's the closest within 95 points. It's hard to say who's a real competitor, but people are going to have to step up their game here in the Cup Series because Ryan Blaney, who's second, is a full race away plus. From where Tyler Reddick is. So they're going to have to step up their game if they want to be a contender with Tyler Reddick. And he's kind of given me the example of what I feared this year, and that it would be a runaway championship that we'd know well in advance who was going to win the championship. But can he sustain it all season long? That's going to be the key.
That's the important thing, and I will say this: so far to start this season, 23-11 has been the absolute bar as far as organization. The driver leading that way, Tyler Reddick. So at this point, at least looking at championship contenders, who can? It's not a big three in me. It's Tyler Reddick and whoever else, because he has just thumped them good and proper, if you will. Bubba Wallace,
and who can close the gap?
Right? Yeah, who can catch him? Bubba Wallace is his teammate, barring this past week of a rough start, very consistent with him. Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, having the wins, I don't know about the solid consistency week in, week out. Blaney has shown that now in back-to-back weeks. Denny Hamlin, again, veteran driver, top organization. Then you have the Hendrick Motorsports, and Chase Elliott is one we said this Chase format would fit into his wheelhouse. Got to see what Chevrolet and HMS do overall. What I look at, though, for the 6 races so far, RFK is coming.
Yes.
Can they get there and can they maintain? But they're the ones I think are coming. And then you got Ty Gibbs, at least in the past, I'll give it 3 to 4 weeks. Again, he was on a top 5 consecutive finishes, 6th place, not that far off. Hocevar and Suarez, the next 2, and that goes to that Spire Motorsports. So I think there are a lot that could be come the end of the season, and but right now it is all Tyler Reddick.
It certainly is. All Sports All Day says, honestly, Bubba was doing really good. Then he really screwed him. And I kind of agree with that.
And that is ironic of, first it was all Toyotas because it was Denny Hamlin got into, that was what Eric Jones got into Eric Jones. And when that checked him up, as he bumped Eric Jones and Jones went around, Hamlin slowed up. And Bubba Wallace took the worst of it by running into the wall and into Hamlin. So, it was kind of an ironic thing that it was Hamlin's undoing against Toyota as a whole. But there again, we got to see now if Bubba Wallace has matured, that organization, can they bounce back and overcome this week and come back and get back in where they were at? Martinsville, again, Bubba Wallace has been better at every track, I think, so far this year than he has in the past, to include road courses. So I look forward to Martinsville in the weeks to come, if they can now maintain that, or if that one hiccup brings them all the way down.
All right. All 3 NASCAR series are in the books for Darlington Spring Race, but there's more on Hot Topics list. On our Hot Topics list tonight. So let's break down a few more discussion points here. And that is, Jay, you brought this one up. Old school guy mentality. Is it harming the evolution of NASCAR? And you gave examples of Richard Childress Racing and Jack Roush.
So here in an interview with Kyle Busch, he was talking about this and off the top of my head now, I cannot think of the new name they brought in at the competition level, but somebody they brought in kind of bumping heads with Richard Childress. And it made me think of what RFK is now doing. And we talk about this next gen car. It's no longer as much mechanical, as Kyle Busch has admitted, so Brad Keselowski coming in to RFK. And I think Jack Roush kind of happened to step away. I can't go in and tweak the spark plugs. That's always stands out in my mind. It used to be every race, Jack Roush was walking around with the gauge and the one doing the spark plugs. It's not about that no more. It's on the engineering side. So is Richard Childress still trying to hold on to I'm going to fix one thing mechanically, and that's not what can be done anymore to change the organization and find speed. And I think we've seen Roush, Fenway, Keselowski adapt and allow Brad to bring in some engineering aspects, and Jack Roush step back on the mechanical side. Not that you don't still need the engine in a fast engine, okay? Don't get me wrong. But do they need to, these older owners that have that mechanical aspect and mentality, such as Richard Childress would? And to compare that, I think about Rick Hendrick and Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs had no racing experience. He came in and said, I'm going to lead the organization. I'm going to go hire the crew chief, the driver, the mechanic, and let them do their job. I think we might see some of that at RCR, of that not happening, and it needs to.
Yes, I agree with you. I do think Jack Roush as an organization was and I'm not going to say it's necessarily Jack Roush, but something systemically in that organization was not forward thinking. and they were not able to keep up with what was happening with all of the other teams. As a result, they lost ground, and Brad Keselowski came in with the intention of turning that all around, and he's succeeding in doing that because he's bringing that more forward-thinking attitude that's helping them evolve to be a better team. And that's what happens sometimes with situations like this. You have, okay, All Sports All Day says, I got to head out to bed. Thanks for a great show. Can't wait for next week. Martinsville will be great. All Sports All Day, we really appreciate you and thank you for your interaction with us. And it was great having Hunter here tonight with us as well. So thank you so much. You really add to the conversation, and we appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll look forward to seeing both of those guys hopefully next week. So it happens within an organization sometimes. You get kind of content with where you are, and you forget to kind of plan for the future and take a look at what's happening around you so that you can move forward and continue to grow. And that's what happened, I think, within both of those organizations. I think Richard Childress is kind of stuck on his mindset. And I think I've read somewhere that Austin has tried to talk to him about making different changes, and he's hit resistance there. And as a result, I think it's hurting the organization. And I wish they would just be a little bit more open-minded. Obviously, Jack Roush is getting older and less likely to be making some of these decisions. I think a lot of the decisions are now in Brad's hand, and we're seeing the result. They're getting better results. They had a great race at Darlington, all three of those cars, and Brad's doing a fantastic job there. So, yeah, I would agree. Holding back NASCAR? I don't think so. I think NASCAR is going to move forward with or without him.
And that's where I think the key is from what we saw when Roush brought both Fenway in as a partner and then Brad Keselowski as that driver, of Jack Roush allowing him and giving him the freedom to, and that's why I use Joe Gibbs Racing. He's always very clear on that. As well as Rick Hendrick. You go out, you hire them to do their job. You got to let them do their job. And this is from the outside looking in. It's not against Richard Childress in any way, but the fact that Kyle brought it to light of, and look back to when Kyle Busch first came over there, they were winning, and all of a sudden they aren't anymore. They lost that momentum. And he's saying that, and like you said, and I had heard some of that too, of even Austin Dillon saying, hey, Grandpa won't listen. When it's time to turn over the reins, you got to turn them over.
Yes. And Kyle Busch, I think part of his struggles is what we talked about last week. And you brought up some good points in that regard. Kyle Busch is not winning, not because he doesn't know how to drive. The next gen car has been a super big challenge for him. He can't give the feedback that he's accustomed to giving to improve the race. And actually, Martin had an old school driver has said, let me drive the car and let me see if I can't come up with some solutions to help this car run better. What are your thoughts there about Mark Martin making that offer?
And that is one of, if they were to have, and I think back to even back in the day, you always had the, NASCAR test drivers of not Mark Marquez, I combined the two, Dave Marcus, because he waved the green flag. I think having an older generation driver, such as Mark Martin, not just for the car and maybe some things on the car, but also then maybe of drivers like Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch who weren't adapting. And Kevin Harvick on his podcast talked about it. He said, I had a choice. I could either try and adapt or I could take that as my exit time. He chose to exit out, and he admits that. He didn't want to try and fight learning the new car. That's his decision. If these drivers...
Kyle Busch credit, because he is willing to try.
He's trying, absolutely. But there, a driver like Mark Martin might be able to give a little more insight to Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, some of these drivers that were in the cars before this next gen. Say, okay, this is what I feel. Have you tried adapting in this way? But also then to NASCAR of, hey, let's make this change to the car that maybe these newer drivers aren't giving. So I think it'd be a good thing. And like I said, they used to have that of the NASCAR test drivers, and I know Dave Marcus was a big part of that.
Yeah, I think it would be a good thing too. And it, even if it came out to be that he couldn't really add anything new to make the car better, I still think it would be a good thing because he would be able to go in there and find that out as a driver. But he just might go in there. I think either way, it's going to be a good thing. He just might go in there and might come up with a suggestion that is going to make it better for some of these drivers that are struggling. So I think it's worth the try. Nothing.
Yeah. What's the harm? Yeah. What's the harm?
Yeah. There's no harm by letting him come in and try it. I think we should give him the chance. Okay. Our last topic here has to do with the ARCA Menard series. Tim Goulet has been suspended indefinitely. And I was just looking this up. It has to do with a suspension comes due to an off-track matter involving Tim and Rita Goulet, who previously owned Rise Motorsports as a married couple. It says, we went to retrieve team assets in South Carolina, which Tim had previously hidden, and he assaulted me. So that's why, as a result of the Tim has a warrant in South Carolina, and he plans to head there on Monday, March 23rd, to resolve it. Due to his warrant, the series suspended him, the Goulets have stated. So it's defamation of character from husband-wife spat. So this is Rita trying to get everything out of me and using this as leverage. She's spiteful and wants to play stupid games. This is irreparable harm done by Rita to me. So, but the arrest warrant is the reason why he has been suspended indefinitely. Did you know that, Jay?
Yeah, I had read up on it when I saw about the suspension of understanding how a team owner got suspended. This is another one where I understand from the image of the sport and sponsors or whatever, but at this point, this is a he said, she said. Obviously, he said in a divorce spat of should NASCAR or the sanctioning body be involved in that, especially being that at this point it's not a conviction. I think back to when Kurt Busch got suspended for what happened with Driscoll, and then after 3 races, they're like, oh, he didn't do anything wrong. It was all her. He can come back. You've taken away somebody's livelihood, and in that case, wasn't correct. It wasn't on him, So I think they maybe jumped the gun a little with the suspension. I understand being concerned about it and aware of it, but until something is settled, I think they jumped the gun a little bit. I really do.
Well, I don't. I think the fact that he assaulted her is reason enough to have a suspension.
That's the charge, but that's the charge. That's the charge.
Okay, I got you. But still, her comment was that Tim's outstanding warrant is the reason for his suspension. It has nothing to do with our division of team assets. The distribution of team assets will be handled in court. And then she goes on to say, I hope Tim receives the mental health help he needs. So, there's he said, she said, like you said. But the thing is, NASCAR needs to keep that out of, Rita's showing that she can handle it. I don't know. It's hard to say what happened because we're not there to know exactly what happened. I get that. But at the same time, the fact that there is a warrant out says legally there's a reason, there's a warrant. That doesn't just happen. So I think that they need to have the suspension until that warrant is settled, or until they get settled and they're no longer spatting with one another. Because you don't want that carrying over at the racetrack.
Well, and there's my aspect of it, of if there is that domestic dispute, we'll call it that. And I know it was in a public place, allegedly. I get that, and I understand from the image aspect of any sport or organization. But on the other hand, I go back to until it's proven. And second off of, okay, if there was, either way, whatever happened, that is the personal side of it. Has there ever been anything from either one of the Goulet at the track through a race of violence or anything else? That's where I think of, like I said, if I got problems at home, should my job be affected if it's not me affecting the job?
Yeah, but divorces are very contentious. That's a given.
Can be, yes. Can be. I agree.
Not always, but they can be. And this one is showing signs of being a contentious divorce. So I do think that NASCAR needs to take the steps they need to do to protect the other competitors at the track and everything else. So I think this is warranted. As long as there is a legal warrant out for him, I think that does need to be handled in that way.
I just go back and I didn't pull up the details, but
you can say woulda, shoulda, coulda after the fact, if you know what I'm saying.
Right, I understand, but then let the courts handle that. If NASCAR, the ARCA Menard series, were to say, okay, you can't both be at the track, or we're going to separate you at the track, I understand that. Like I said, I think back to Kurt Busch, and I wasn't a big Kurt Busch fan back then. But when the incident happened with his alleged fiance or wife, I don't remember if they were married. I think it was girlfriend, but anyway, alleging that he had abused her in the motorhome at the track, NASCAR suspended him. Turns out it was made up, and he was cleared of it. You have taken 3 races away from. At that time, for Kurt Busch, it was 3 races. So I'm using that as an example. You have taken 3 weeks of pay, of 3 weeks of his life, that shot at a championship. They gave him the waiver or approval to still run for the championship. I don't think it was the waiver at that time. That's the only issue I have is you're not only are you getting involved in this domestic dispute, but you're taking away one's individual livelihood from them. And that's where I don't agree with that.
That's one issue that it happened in that way, and that ended up being maybe a good thing. I mean, it still might have been the other way around, but it was proven that it wasn't, so you got to go with that. But the thing is, there's a rule that is in place. It is rule number based on the violation the ARCA rule book, section 12-8.1, which references member conduct guidelines. The ARCA Menard Series driver owner, Tim Goulet, has been suspended for an indefinite period of time. There's a rule there for a reason, and he has violated that rule. So whether or not it's true, the thing is, it's kind of like, I know when I was in management, if there was an issue with somebody, we said you're on an indefinite suspension until we can investigate the situation and make a determination. They're still out of their livelihood, regardless of how it turns out, but they have to be suspended to allow that investigation to take place. And in this case, I think NASCAR sometimes lets the law be the ones that determine what happens there. That's what happened in the Kurt Busch situation, and that's what happens here. But that rule is in place for a good reason. So
now,
they have to follow what they have in the rule book.
Now, with that though, when you're talking about on a civilian sector side, if they put them on a leave of absence, is that not then they're paid until something is proven? Yes, they're not in the work environment, but it's okay. I wasn't clear on that. Again, I was military, so I don't know what the leave of absence or paid, but until it is settled. Like I said, I understand them being aware of it and taking precautions, but to suspend him, to me, that's NASCAR in the Arkham Menard series saying he's guilty until proven innocent. And it's supposed to be you're innocent until proven guilty.
Oh, I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from, and I understand that. And I understand why you feel that way. But I think that if you have a rule, you need to follow what's in the rule book when these situations come up. Otherwise, it's pointless to have the rule.
And from that, I know at one point, and I'm trying to think of the spotter, there was if you notify NASCAR of it, they wouldn't, and that, I don't know if that comes into play in this. You mentioned there is a warrant, so obviously the law is involved. That aspect, you're right. I understand they're following what the law has issued, the warrant of that aspect. So I just, like I said, I don't want to see it be a repeat of the Kurt Busch where he was suspended and then it turned out he was innocent, but he lost 3 races, pay, everything else.
Right. Well, we just have to, let them do their due course. And that's what happened in the Kurt Busch situation too. They did their due course. So, okay. Anything else? I think that.
No, that's one of those, again, I hate to see anybody involved in it. And you mentioned it a lot of times, divorces are contentious, when you're in the public eye or in a public format, even such as racing. Even the owners, again, goes back to that of everybody is under the microscope. And yeah, there are conduct rules that if you're involved in this organization as a sport, that, yeah, you do have to be more of a representative than others.
Right. And then the other thing to consider here is that NASCAR can't cover, all the rules can't cover every single situation.
Right.
And so a lot of this is based on case-by-case situations, based on the conversations that they have behind the scenes and everything else. In this case, because there is a warrant, I think they are obligated to follow through on the rule.
And like I said, that may be a little more specific of, I guess, with that of the warrant being issued. And again, the charge of that. And I say, I'm trying to think back. That was only maybe 5 or 6 years ago. The fact of the matter of if you bring it to NASCAR and say, hey, I'm engaged in this, they're like, okay, we appreciate you coming. We're going to watch it as well. Versus if they find out through another means of somebody comes knocking on their door saying, hey, one of your people needs to come see us, then they're going to respond a little differently.
Yes. Okay. Anything, I'm going to go ahead and remove this.
All right.
And then we'll go to this week's watch list. We had our Hot Topic Sound Off here tonight, 8:15. Every Monday, 8:15, we have Hot Topic Sound Off as a live stream. And we do like being interactive. So we had a couple people interactive with us tonight. We encourage others to interact with us as well. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody again next week when we do this again for Martinsville. Also, Wednesday, I mentioned it earlier, 6 o'clock Central Time is Race Chat Live with the Race Chat Live guys. That is Chris Crichton, the yellow caution flag. Also, Taz Taylor, the Tasmanian Devil of Flaggers, and CJ Sports. So they have a little bit different flavor to their conversations, and we call it the adult version of Hot Topics discussion. So we tend to be a little more on the PG side, or not even PG, on the G side. They are more on the PG side, I guess, or maybe even R-rated on occasion. So you do want to tune in because the discussions are a lot of fun and very lively. So definite must watch. Also, Jay and I are going to be doing the previews for Martinsville coming up this week, as well as the ARCA Menard Series East is going to have their race at Hickory Motor Speedway. And we'll be talking about all of that coming up on our previews. Those are usually posted between Thursday and Friday. And then on Friday, Taz and I sit down and give you the fantasy report to help you with your fantasy picks for the upcoming weekend of racing. And I think I might have did pretty good. I think he only beat me on one. We had 4 where we had differences. And I think I got the 3 out of the 4. And he had 1 that he beat me on. So I think I might have gained some points this week. So we'll see with our recap of that coming up on the fantasy report this week.
Well, that's good. Love to see the competition with that. I know it's always a lot of fun amongst friends, yes. Jabs back and forth. I didn't see any group chats this week to see which one of you was doing better. I know last week you guys were going back and forth.
Yeah. Well, and we were trying to be coy about it, I think. But
but yeah, no, that's right. Because, yeah, nobody said specifically of who did what. But I had figured it out just based on the comment about Sharon's favorite driver, and that don't take much to figure out.
Okay. And then the other, then of course the races take place over the weekend, and we start all over again with Monday's Hot Topic Sound Off at 8:15 p.m. Central Time here on Fan for Racing Radio. So we also want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. For taking time to hear what we have to say. We had a lot of fun doing these, and we hope you enjoy it. We went a little overtime tonight, Jay. But I just want to say Darlington didn't just challenge the drivers this weekend. It revealed them. From the Truck Series learning curve to the Reilly Series proving ground to the Cup Series pressure cooker, we saw who can handle the chaos, who can deliver dominance, and who's emerging as true contenders. And as the season moves forward, these moments matter because this is where momentum starts and where the chase run takes the shape. We'll be here to break it all down every step of the way here on Fan for Racing Radio. This is Hot Topic Sound Off on Fan for Racing Radio, covering the NASCAR Truck, Reilly and Cup Series, where chaos meets dominance and contenders rise. We don't just cover it, we sound it off. So, Jay, anything you want to say before we go?
No, it definitely had some different sound off. Great, again, appreciate the interaction there with All Sports All Day, as always, as well as our, I said new, like I said, I guess you've seen him on the
Hunter,
fantasy show. But also we had 115 subscribers now. I know that's still climbing. So excited about this race season. And as always, it's that next week. And Martinsville's another good one. And this is that stretch where I think we really will see at least of who's on their way up or down. Having an off week is one thing, but you start putting together back-to-back weeks of good or bad, that's going to take a look at how your season's going to go.
It sure is. So we definitely want to keep you in tune with what's going on from week to week. So again, thanks for tuning in. And I hear Bogey.
Yeah, I was just saying, Bogey found something.
Okay. We'll see everybody in the next video. Take care now.
All right.